Okay. Okay. Okay, today at the first part, I'm going to try to give some brief information about my architectural adventure, as you want, from the very beginning until now. Then I'm going to present you today 3 projects in a more detailed manner as distinctive examples of our design approach in EAA, together with the resources, reasons, and the arguments, and our understanding of context, as you said earlier, which I believe is the primary component of our work. On the
sorry for interrupting. There is a technical problem. There is a screen problem.
Okay, is that okay now?
I guess it's
do you see my screen now?
Yes, everything is perfect.
Okay. What was the problem?
Yes, all good.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess we will present.
Okay. Speaking about context, on the one hand, we all know that we are somehow living in a world now which is becoming smaller and smaller day by day, with the effects of widespread global tendencies. I can say that this old sphere is much more flattened now. Okay, there's a problem in my computer, I guess. In his book *Sapiens*, Noah Harari talks about the attractive allure of consumption frenzy and says, consumerism tells us that in order to be happy, we must consume as many products and services as possible. And if we feel that something is missing or not quite right, then we probably need to buy a product, a car, new clothes, organic food, or a service. Housekeeping, relationships, therapy, or yoga classes, for example. This is the climate of all that is solid melts into air, as Marshall Berman borrowed ingeniously from Karl Marx, who was the legendary and deep thinker oracle of the last century. On the other hand, this is not just an economic phenomenon. Actually, this lunatic evolution manipulates every corner of our lives, and it's producing a cosmical epidemic, and the world is burning out this time. The truth melts in the air like all other solids, and it won't be wrong to consider somehow this situation as an epiphany of neocolonialism. And since the majority of the audience now is formed by the students of architecture, maybe a specific question or a certain subject could be meaningful to discuss in this very moment. What could be the role of the architecture or the architect in the spirit within this global context? I say it's meaningful because you are the future of this profession, and it depends on you somehow. Okay, I'll get back to this, but let's go to another era now. I invite you to Turkey, to a country which is highly affected by latest capitalist tendencies. My parents, who are both architects, established their first office in Ankara, in the capital city of Turkish Republic. And at that time, they were participating in architectural competitions in order to get a job, because this was their only, let's say, their only chance to have it. And finally, they won the first prize in the competition of Zonguldak Hospital in 1963. I'm not sure if it may be a good sign or not, but I came to this earth right at the same time. And after a couple of years, they moved to Istanbul and opened their office there. On my teenage years, one of my dreams was becoming a professional car racer. But somehow I found myself in an architectural school in Istanbul, in Mimar Sinan University. Just after my graduation from there, I went to US in late 80s and worked as a junior architect, as a rookie, let's say, in Washington, D.C. for about a year. And after an extremely pleasant, fruitful and enjoyable period in Georgetown, the office was in Georgetown, once again, I was in Istanbul and joined to my parents' office. And I can say that, I mean, as a brief summary, Arolat Architects, my parents' office was one of my principal schools as well. But after 17 years of, let's say, hand in glove, I felt that I should finish the school and graduate from there. And finally, in 2004, we established EAA-Emre Arolat Architecture together with my partner Gonca. And it was somehow the forming period of Turkey's last generation progress, and we had a lot of work at that time. Just after 4 years, I can say that we became one of the most prolific offices of the country, with more than 100 young architects. And I mean, I was very keen, even with this large group, we were always trying to conserve our ethos and spirit. And we tried so hard not to become a, let's say, large scale, lack of soul and the toneless corporate office. Instead, I think potentials of public benefit, let's say sensitivity about the context, and somehow internalizing various situations with all their distinctive characters. For this, we had to, I mean, work a lot. They were always the main issues of our practice. We design at different scales, like the Zorlu Center, for example, nearly 1 million square meters of mixed use located at the heart of Istanbul, or a single family house in Miami at the same time. And we face various contexts in some different countries like US, England, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Hungary, Albania, Russia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Pakistan, Tatarstan, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, or Oman. I mean, here you see some of them. Some other examples: a mosque and community center in Dubai, a housing complex in Oman, a mixed use in Baku, a cultural center in Bergama in Turkey, or a refurbishment project in Brussels. A high-rise mixed use, the St. Regis Hotel and the Contemporary Art Museum, all together, all in Istanbul. Another museum project as adaptive reuse of an old constructivist movie theater in Moscow, designed by one of the most famous constructivist architects in that time. A restaurant in South River, Miami, and then extremely ecological office complex in Dubai. A housing project in Lisbon, a villa in Dubai, another mixed-use complex in Kazan, a museum, an ethnographic museum in Budapest that coexists with a park, and some recent urban scale projects in Albania at the shores of Ionian Sea. Or some airport terminals in various contexts, such as Dalaman, Istanbul, and Cyprus. Some of them are built and some are not. And through our practice, we have received many architectural awards, such as the Aga Khan Award for architecture, Mies van der Rohe Award of European Union, RIBA International Awards, and several winnings at World Architectural Festival. We are also active in the academic world somehow, with tutorships and lectures. I ran several studios in Europe, in US, and in Turkey as well. I'm a chartered member of RIBA since about 8 or 9 years now, and to let's say 3 years ago, I was elected as an honorary fellow of AIA, American Architects, American Institute of Architects, and I was also accorded the title of professor by the International Academy of Architecture. I never used this title. The plurality among our works and the sensitive approach to each work regarding its, let's say, specific situation and context, I guess they were all the reason of the title of our first Rizzoli New York book, first book published by Rizzoli New York. Context and Plurality, named by the editors, Philippe Giodidio and Suha Özkan. Our second book by Rizzoli, again, this has been published very recently and pointing at the increasing number of international works. This time it is named as global and local. Scent of the Trees, which is the title of this talk as well, is also the name of our new book, which is recently published by Oro Editions in US. I believe that the introduction text of Aaron Betsky is really brilliant. Is one of the most brilliant introduction text of our office or myself, and the readers will find the traces of our philosophy within sight and some of my personal thoughts as well. In 2014, I mean, after about 10 years that we established EAA in Turkey, although we were very busy with some really large-scale projects in Istanbul, we opened a second office in London. And since then, we are dealing with various kind of projects, such as mixed-use, residential, and hospitality buildings. Our office was in Clerkenwell, I mean, physically, but because of the pandemic, we're working remotely since more than a year now. And frankly speaking, I'm not sure when will we reopen the office, or are we going to adapt remote or let's say hybridize the work permanently. I think we'll wait a bit more and see what's going on. Okay, the first project that I like to present in a detailed way is the Duxbridge House, which is located in Reading, UK. And it's one of our London office work. You see, as you all know, Reading is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, in the UK, since many well-known companies' headquarters are based in there. The city is called as UK's, let's say, digital and the somehow creative capital. Since we're dealing with another project in Reading since a couple of years, we're quite familiar with the area. And you see the orange, it shows the new project site, this Duxbridge site, the Duxbridge House, and the red shows the location of our first project in Reading, which is called as Reading 5975. A part of this project is the conversion and the roof extension to the Clarendon House, which is an existing vacant office building, to be an affordable housing building. You see this Clarendon with yellow dotted line, the roof extension of it, and the other extensions like the new blocks. A corner view showing the additional residential volumes. I mean, this building will be mostly residential, and there will be some very small additional retail on the ground floor. Those volumes are following the critical urban lines of the area, with some fragmented masses and the meticulously handled details in a very specific context, in a very specific area as well. It's under construction at the moment, and the existing building and roof extension of it are now completed. and the construction of the corner building is about to start. I don't know when. Those pictures were from my last site visit, maybe 1.5 years ago, before the pandemic. Going back to Duxbridge House, you see the site, which is marked in red. It is located on the 23 Duke Street, within the central core of the city. I can say that it's well connected with buses and only kind of, let's say, 7 to 10 minute walk from the train station. These are part of the site studies, basically showing main and secondary roads to and from and to our site. We are inside the London Street Conservation Area and located within the narrow midpoint of it. These are some studies about the building uses, different functions, and the building heights as well. And the area you see marked in yellow is showing the existing masses. And the red is the extendable area within the site. And these are the boundaries. This is a site section taken from the River Kennet, which is the main river of Reading. You can observe the articulated roof line between the 5 to 10 story volumes and the increase in height towards the east. And these pictures can give you some idea about the context and the buildings creating this roof line. These are from the conservation area, which we mostly studied grade 1 and grade 2 listed buildings and their relationship with the emerging ones, with the new ones. Some other recent projects emerging in Reading, just to give you an idea about the development of the town. From the Blade to Kings Point, or our project 5975, they all will shape kind of central Reading's new skyline. And these are the buildings neighboring our site, ranging in styles and the variety of materials, somehow, I think, reflecting their times and their somehow abilities. Speaking of immediate surrounding, the River Kennet is located just south of our site, and this mostly alluring and desired path is currently cut short because it's not in use mostly due to the poor state. The existing ramp, which is shown in blue, is outdated and neglected with no active frontages around it. There is a level difference between Duke Street and the River Kennet, and this is why the ramp is an important feature indeed in tying these two paths from the city's daily use. And having studied the constraints, let's say, we discovered also the opportunities, like having a positive impact on the public realm and the conservation area, such as planting, creating active frontages, and straightening pedestrian linkages. And these are the images of the existing building which is on site, and you see the stepping on the river elevation. The rear is less articulated, but has a large courtyard, which is used for the moment as a car park. The open beam stores, always closed and useless shutters, let's say, which provide not just a poor outlook, but also have a negative impact on the conservation area. And I believe that with the redevelopment of the site, there's a big potential to turn these closed shutters into some active frontages along the river, such as retail, cafeterias, and the bars and entrance lobbies. The most recent flood map currently shows there's no risk on site, which is also beneficial for activating the riverside level. Now, going into more detail about our design, as a short introduction, we aim to provide 26 residential units with 30% affordable, and design a new ramp to provide much needed active frontages which will improve the public realm and contribute to the conservation area. And to start with design evolution, this is the model of current stage. Existing west corner building is currently positioned kind of awkwardly, and turns its back to the building line that's coming down from the Duke Street. As a first step, the existing building's facade is stripped out, leaving only the existing slab, and those slabs are then extended out for the new build. The roof line coming down from Duke Street is continued, and the existing building's roof is extended in accordance with its massing. Then the existing lift core is removed on the last level and stepped down. And the stepping from is this stepping form is then continued down to the Duke Street as you wish. Further steps are introduced using the existing buildings form and other guidelines taken from adjacent buildings. Then the ground floor corner is somehow removed to open up this passage to the public realm. And the corners are rounded to tone down the urban line coming from the Duke Street towards the Kennet River. And a similar rounded corner, as you can see, already exists at the other end of Duke Street. Then the height of neighboring buildings and reference to create a sensitive stepping there. This is a close-up view showing how the new volume is carefully touching the existing building. And this elevation shows how the building sits within other buildings on the river frontage. A view from corner of Duke Street. We are on the bridge of Kennet River. This is an exploded axonometric view showing the let's say physical logic of materiality, why those materials are changing like this, and some detailed facade studies. This one as well. Another angle from the River Kennet, showing the volumetric composition in the context, within the context, and the detail of the corner building. Another elevation, and the view from Duke Street, showing the three-dimensional stepping approach and the voiding of ground level from that angle. This is the detail of the roof extension and a close-up showing the extension, which has a, let's say, lighter cladding system comparing the robust solid brick facade of existing building. Another view from the urban context from the other angle. And I think that by renewing the ramp and creating some public programs and active frontages on the riverside, the current unpleasant experience will turn into an attractive one for the people living in Reading. We also assess the design within the conservation area, and the detailed view assessment study is done in the lead of our heritage consultant, and the proposed volume is tasted from some various key points within the conservation area, as you can see, such as this one. This is a view from London Street, which is a very critical one. And finally, we submitted this project to the council more than a year ago now, and we're still waiting for the planning approval, and I hope that we can get it soon. Okay, we opened our US office in New York about 3 years ago, and it was in Soho, always my favorite area in Manhattan. Since then, we dealt with various kind of projects such as residential, private houses, and hotels. mainly in New York and Miami, but with the impacts of pandemic, all three of our offices, including Istanbul actually, are physically closed for now. Yes, I'm coming to the office every day personally, but my colleagues are mostly working remotely. And we are dealing with the pros and cons of remote working for the moment. Okay, the second project that I'm going to present to you is in Antakya, a city at the southeast part of Turkey. And during the early Roman period, Antakya or Antioch, with its ancient name, was the third largest city in the world. I can say that it's a cradle of civilizations. And a local entrepreneur at that time wanted to build a hotel on his land, which is located at the center of the town, near to the famous St. Pierre Church, which is a pilgrim place. He made a deal with an international brand and started the construction according to a very conventional 400-room hotel brief with his former architect's project. But life was not easy there, and wherever they were excavating, they were encountering some archaeological remains, and everybody was in trouble. The architects, the technical consultants from different disciplines, including one of the most prominent teams of archaeologists, and they were all hoping to discover a considerable empty place to, and let's say convenient place to locate the hotel. But after 7 months of hard work, they faced the reality, because this nearly 20,000 square meter land was full of ruins, and this was extremely disappointed for everybody, including the investor. This is the guy. This guy is the investor, Necmi Asfuroğlu. He broke up with his architect at that time. He was blaming him for, let's say not being sensitive enough about what was happening there, and he was somehow at the last exit and feeling kind of helpless. This was the beginning of a long and, let's say, quite challenging story for us, starting with an urgent call by a friend, by a professor who's already in the scientific team. And this picture is from 2010, from my first visit to the site. It's been 11 years now. The scene was really incredible. There were tons of layers everywhere, a Roman bath, traces of different buildings, probably a big temple, according to the historians, and a bunch of incredibly bright mosaics. One of them actually a giant size, more than 1,000 square meters, as well as I know the biggest in situ mosaic in the world, and some others with very beautiful colors and the bright patterns, sometimes even with hundreds of figures. At that time, the landowner was looking to my eyes and he was hoping to see a ray of hope, but I didn't want to be tricky, and very briefly I said he better forget about the project. And looking for a miraculous solution from me, he was extremely disappointed at that time. It was getting late, and they took me for a dinner. We tasted local wine, talked about the magical situation of the land and the impossibility of building something there. And the next day, I woke up early in the morning. It's a long story, but I'm doing short. And we decided to stay one more day. Then I went on the top of the hill, which is overlooking the city. The view was fascinating. I walked down the narrow street and the old town, and I went back to the site. I really watched every corner of the land, hours and hours, and after some critical discussions with the historians and the archaeologists and the conservation specialists, actually, some pictures, if you want, appeared on my mind. And I told the investor that I can work for a concept design, saying that he should be ready for some very tough times ahead of us, and there's no guarantee at all. And I warned him seriously about the difficulties of the process, lots of objections, budget exceeding, and extreme construction methods. And he smiled at me, saying that he's ready for all of it. Maybe he did the biggest mistake in his life, because the next process was really challenging. And in order to deal with this unique situation and with the aim of a very sensitive archaeological conservation, we were set into a very tough route of design and bureaucracy at the same time. Lots of presentations, bunch of approvals, starting from the local authorities and heritage committee going up to the ministry. It was a big challenge. Let's see quickly how we proceeded at first stage, and this is the plot. The plot has a kind of a rectangular shape. It's about 100 to 200 meters. The findings were clearly visible after a very deliberate archaeological excavation, and nearly the whole site was covered with layers of ruins. With some exceptions, fortunately. Yes, something that was discovered during the process of design, I can say that just saved our lives. You see the picture, the black and white is from 1910. And you see the creek with yellow dotted line coming down from the mountain towards the city. And we discovered that the old river used to run through the site, and it was very obvious that its bed was changed formerly to be aligned with the new road. And apparently there were no findings along this old bed, and this fact was bringing a unique opportunity to us. On the borders of the plot, with no findings, and along the old river course, there was enough ground for a series of columns as the main structural elements of the building. An almost 25-meter deep pilotis was designed to carry the huge roof, which will protect the ruins and at the same time accommodate an important part of the building program, such as, which normally is located on the ground level. But this time this will be on the roof. All of them will be on the roof, like ballroom, restaurant, spa, and even a roof garden with a swimming pool. And we suggested to create another level of structure, a lighter and permeable one, which will hold the rooms, and they will be stacked on 3 floors, just like prefabricated containers, and connected to each other with detached bridges. One important thing to mention here, since it was not relevant at all to construct them with conventional methods because of the existence of the ruins. The rooms were to be constructed off-site and then brought and placed into their location within the frame. And it was like a kind of utopian fantasy for some of us, maybe even for me as well. But it came true. They came to the land on top of some giant-sized tracks, and replacing every single room to its place with some very small margins, like a half centimeter, was just a nightmare for all of us, but it came true. In addition to the long lobby lounge, let's say, and some gastronomic facilities, which are located at the entrance level of the hotel. There's an open-air museum route with a relatively small indoor exhibition area was included in the program. Even if it's a privately owned land, the museum has to be donated to the Ministry of Culture. It's a law in Turkey, but still should be totally maintained by the owner. These drawings are showing clearly the relationship between public and private zones. I believe that dealing with this tension and converting this issue to a, let's say, positive potential by creating somehow permeable spaces as much as possible are among the most alluring challenges of today's architecture. This is my personal thought. Not only for buildings, this kind of, let's say, transmissivity is also a key factor for the social richness of the cities and the, let's say, urban strategies as well. As far as different classes, different socio-economical classes find decent ways of places to get together, I think that our cities will develop their viabilities. Anyway, the ground level plan above, you see 66 columns with a diameter of 130 centimeter, reaching to a depth of nearly 25 meters, but without touching any single piece of ruin, thanks to this intense coordination with the archaeologists. But I should emphasize that the plans have been changed at least more than 10 times during the process. And the typical room floor, you see below, the plan of typical room floor, quite fragmented, allowing unexpected visual perspectives. And you see the lower level circulation of the museum, which is totally open to public and separated from the hotel part. Just a quick recap with the simplified three-dimensional graphics. This was the land after the drillings and the situation after the first stage of the excavation. And you see 66 columns, which we were often suffering to fix their exact positions. This is the museum level with the indoor exhibition box and the outdoor parkour, both flying on the ruins without touching them. Steel beams connecting the columns and creating a visually permeable level for the room boxes. And the rooms are coming from their production plant, which is located about 4 kilometers away. Positioning them meticulously in order to generate visual fluidity and alluring perspectives within the hotel. Okay, this was the old riverbed, and somehow the main circulation part of the roof is kind of mimicking its direction while conveying the diffused natural light under itself and connecting some public areas like restaurants, bars, swimming pool, and spa through small courtyards like the local architecture in Antarctica. And after 10 years of struggle, I can say that the hotel and the museum have opened their doors, and instead of 400 room expectation of the investor, we were able to fit the half of it, but it was just the case. And I think this was one of the most challenging process of my architectural career. And the opening was like very unexpected moment for me. The New York Times published a list for places to go in 2020, and this complex is among these 52 places to see, but unfortunately they were not aware of the pandemic at that time, I guess. And some recent shots from the interior space, different levels of circulation parts. You see the museum below, the museum parkour, and the circulation part of the hotel above. One of the hotel restaurants at right inside, which became, I think, one of the most successful gastronomic facility in the town. And the path reaching the interior part of the public museum. There's a closed part and there is an open path as well. And the entrance of this museum part, you see somehow the overall planning strategy allows a considerable permeability and kind of highly fluid space perception. And these are some shots from the room level. I can say that this building is one of the most photogenic buildings that we have done, because you can take, I mean, millions of photographs and no one of them are same. The visibility between the layers was one of the main issues of our design. And I'm quite happy about the final thing. The lighting design was also an important factor. We worked with two different firms, Studio Lighting Design, a Turkish-Italian partnership for the hotel part, and Studio Dinebir from Germany in the museum. This is the hotel lobby and the famous huge mosaic. Another angle. You see the main lobby, this time with a partial glass floor overlooking a very unique Pegasus mosaic. One more thing that I find quite important is the restoration of the archaeological texture. The balance is very important on that. These works are going to continue for a while, and it's one of the nicest things, because I believe that this will break down the taboos of archaeology somehow, which was like an kind of, let's say, untouchable discipline until now, and help it to amalgamate with the community, which I find quite positive, since this sensitive process, I believe, will create a public awareness. These are some exterior shots. I go quickly. You can reach them from our website, from some of the magazines, the afternoon, the evening. We also did the interior design, again, using mostly local material. And that's it. Okay, now we are in Istanbul for the last project, nearly 8 or maybe now, 8 years ago, let's say. A foundation called Sancaklar got in touch with our office about a new mosque project. And to speak honestly, as a prejudgment, I can say that I thought they were looking for a replica of an Ottoman mosque, because in Turkey, even today, when you design a new mosque, the first thing that you have to face is the kind of figurative burdens of classical Ottoman mosque. Is a weird anachronism, and I told them immediately that I'm not that kind of architect, and to speak honestly, this first meeting was finished in a very bad way. And on the other hand, I'm a big fan of Ottoman mosque, and I find them extremely beautiful. But today, I mean, after about half a millennium, maybe more than half a millennium, even though the construction techniques are totally renewed, I really find this expectation quite pathetic. And it's an issue that we face every day, and we are accustomed to see brand new replicas or even caricatures everywhere in the country. For example, here on the left, you see the original Selimiye Mosque from 16th century, one of the masterpieces of architect Sinan Edirne, and on the right, the brand new, let's say, Ataşehir Mosque, built after 2010 in Istanbul as a clumsy replica of its original. And the name is Mimar Sinan as well. It's a shame. A few days later, I mean, after this first meeting, the head of the foundation called once again and came to the office this time with this picture. And when he was willing to build the mosque there, and I was somehow extremely impressed by the lake and the untouched aura of the valley. And additionally, he said that they were ready to give me a realm of freedom, and this time I accepted the project. With no big hopes, once again, like in the Antarctica project. And in the beginning of the design process, we went back to the roots, to let's say, to the antiquity, just in order to find a way of radicalization. Then we saw that masjid in Arabic simply means a place to prostrate and does not dictate any form, and it has to be clean, and that's the only condition. So we discovered one more time that there is no formal definition for a mosque in the Quran or in other source. And so instead of searching for, let's say, new and extravagant forms, this time we tried to reach the essence, and this was the essence of the ritual of praying. And on the other hand, we realized that due to the intense pressure of global capitalism, Islamic architecture is passing through a dangerous period. It's the danger of losing its virtue and its identity. Nowadays, for example, Mecca, the center of Islam, is a prime real estate asset. And I think with this kind of approach, we cannot talk about modesty, which is one of the most important, let's say, issues of Islamic philosophy, and the nobleness or humility, or let's say unpretentiousness, which is important as well. They are not there anymore. There are lots of examples for this. One of the latest landmarks of Islamic architecture is the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. It's a very famous one for having the biggest carpet in the world or the most bombastic chandeliers. It's a tourist attraction, a place to see, a platform for Facebook or Instagram. Okay, let's go back to our subject now, the essence, once again, with the mark of humbleness and the humility and modesty. The mosque is located at the outskirts of Istanbul, and it's an initial photo of the site. I took this picture when I went there for the first time. As you can see, it has a very lovely view overlooking the lake and a wild-looking landscape as well. And as an important decision, we put the form away. We try to put the form away in the beginning of design process, as we always do. And we aim to discard all cultural burdens which could affect the, let's say, the purity of our consciousness. And in this respect, we try to somehow suppress the architectural language as much as possible. Of course, I know that it's impossible, but we did our best. And actually, it's not wrong to say that this mosque is somehow trying to tackle with the formalistic attitude of most architecture in Turkey. And these are some very simple schemes. We thought we could play with the topography just a little bit, and we placed the main spaces below. The praying spaces below, and with the help of a simple slit, we were lucky enough to have this specific location. With the simple slit, we got natural light into the main hall. And now, while approaching the land, we almost see nothing than a courtyard, enclosed by horizontal walls and the vertical mass, which is the minaret, and it signifies the place. This is the upper courtyard. This is from the other angle. The cascades, they are following the natural slope, turning into stairs. We go down now, and we are at the lower level, where you can find the entrances of the main hall, the ablution rooms, a small library, and the tea corner. Natural materials as local stone and timber, together with water, was the main elements of this project. And like all Islamic Ottoman complexes, it's a place for gathering as well as praying. This is a kind of outer meditation space. It's been used by different users as well. And this is the Imam House entrance at the left-hand side and the tea corner at the right-hand side. These are the main entrances of the hall and the ablution rooms. And now we are inside. You see the mimbar, mihrab, and the natural light washing the Qibla wall. It reflects all kind of colors during the day as the main decoration of the space. And you see from the other angle. This is a very simple looking, I mean, somehow wow letter from, it's an Arabic letter from Mehmet Özçay. He is a very special calligrapher. And one of the most important issues in this project from my side, unlike the conventional mosque, here women can pray at the forefront, and this was one of the most challenging issues for me to convince people, let's say, of this cogency process. Especially on Fridays, the mosque is full, and I'm very happy about the embracement of the community. Of course, after the pandemic, it's a bit less, but still it serves to people, and I like it because I don't think that a building should be served as giving some nice photographs to the magazines, but it should be used by people. And for good and all, I believe that this building opened a kind of a small door, or opened a door slightly, and turned at last a new and modest light on. A modest light for maybe a very small part of the world which is losing the sense of truth day by day. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask the same question one more time. What could be the role of architecture or the architect in this period within this global context? So until now in EAA, in Istanbul, in London, or in New York, I can say that nothing is so different. We are facing this weird situation just frontally, and even in this atmosphere, which is quite uncanny, let's say, instead of being very affirmative, or let's say a kind of current systems unworried agent, without questioning what's going on, we believe that a producing architect could take a more critical role, undertake a critical position. And coming to the end, as I'm doing in my lectures lately, let me read you a quotation from the Quran. Even if I'm not an expert or a real religionist, this part is my favorite. Don't walk upon the earth bragging. You can never clear the earth, nor can you reach up to the mountains. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Stop sharing now.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
First thing I want to say to thank you to you for the presentation, and the second of all, that if you got any question, feel free to speak loud or type it in the comments. But if you don't mind, I got many questions. That's the first thing, and I will try to start from the broadest one, let's say, to the more detailed. And I think I begin with the most general in terms of the design process that you presented, and that wasn't done so many times kind of to us, the Architecture Society, the Coventry University. So when we were inviting guests, they usually were showing us the idea and the final resolution. And that was kind of generally the outcomes of the presentations. However, in your case, you presented what we are doing basically right now in the universities as well, in terms of the whole process and the whole analysis and this traces of sense of traces, yes, and how you deliver them to the end, yeah, through the whole process of design. And in one of the leading to the questions is, in one of the presentations, in one of the interviews that you did, you said that in 2.5 months you read over 5,000 pages when you were preparing to the Miami project. And I wanted to ask about the importance of it, about the importance of research, or maybe it is more important to observe what is happening around us.
Okay, I mean, both of them are very important. I mean, research has nothing to do without those observations. I mean, this is about internalizing the internalizing various, let's say, effects of the land, various potentials of the land, or in a broader sense of the context as well. So in a way, I believe that design process is like kind of an elimination process as well, because you have lots of data and lots of information in your hand. Hopefully, I mean, if you're lucky. So at the end of the day, if you have lots of them, you can eliminate some of them and achieve to kind of a residue, let's say. So for you, there are some important issues, and I mean, for you as an architect, as the main designer, or as a group of architects, or a team of architects, design group, you have some concerns. If you have a specific feeling about the land, if you have a specific view, I mean, how you observe this world, where do you put this project within this world? What is the politics of this project? What is your aim to do this project? What can you give to the people? How can you achieve the public realm, I mean, the most public project? So there are lots of questions, lots of different questions. I think that design is somehow, design process is somehow, is finding the right questions and giving the right solutions, giving the right responses or answers. So, of course, at the end of the day, it's a kind of personal speculation as well, because you're a person and your perception should be different than others. I mean, in my opinion, maybe we are living in a very flattened world, as I told you before, but somehow all of us are individuals, and some of us, I mean, all of us has some very specific, let's say, understanding or ability to achieve, or ability, I mean, specialty to observe. So somehow it's a kind of, at the end of the day, it's a kind of interpretation, and you interpret everything that you know about this situation in a broader sense. I don't want to say context there, because situation is more important than the context, in my opinion, because situation includes the context as well. But situation in a broader sense, you take it and you interpret by doing a project. I mean, it's a very complicated process in one hand. On the other hand, it's a very enjoyable moment when you feel that you're somehow reaching to the light on the tunnel, and then you are somehow approaching to the light. Because I mean, this is one of the nicest moments in my life. That's why I'm doing this, I guess. I mean, I'm doing, it's like a discovery. And then you always, and in all the project, you discover the best for you, the best for the project. You think that the best for the project. So it's a kind of, yes, observation and interpretation as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just collecting thoughts. No, because sorry. So you think that this is kind of leading to the essence, yeah? Or not, yeah? So all of this process is leading to the essence, or maybe it's more about the truth of the particular place?
That's right. That's right. I mean, I prefer that in all the projects, in all the specific projects, we should somehow find ourselves on a tabula rasa, and then maybe forget about everything that we know. And beginning from the 0 point is very important. Of course, you have lots of, I mean, different kind of knowledges. You're a knowledgeable person, and then you have your own intentions, your own, let's say, a power of abstraction, your own power of observing something. But at the end of the day, it's very important to somehow choose a road, because until the end of the process, You have maybe millions of roads. That's why I always refuse to present alternatives, for example, with my clients, because I mean, most of them are asking for some different alternatives. I mean, if it's an obligatory thing, we try to get rid of it, and then we are always saying that if the original is okay, there's no alternative. I mean, because until that we reach to this original or the residue, we eliminate millions of alternatives. So why you want me to show all of them or some of them? Just to, if you want them, if you want to see them just to make you happy or just to make you more comfortable, okay, I can show you some of them. And we're doing this, but we're doing like a game. I mean, we're beginning with the one that we did not choose, and then afterwards we go to the narrow actions, and then go to the other part, and then afterwards we say, okay, this is the solution, this is the residue. So in a way, yeah, it's a kind of
authenticity.
Maybe, yeah, why not? Yeah, of course. Because it's, I mean, in another way, it's very personal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Your rights will not be the other rights. I mean, your realities could be different than the others. I mean, it should be personal as well.
Okay. Zara, I see that you got a question.
Yes. Hello everyone. Hello Mr. Arolat. I am Zehra. I study at Kocaeli University, Department of Architecture. Actually, my question is so spontaneous. Yes, as we know, you came from a family of architects. But when did you say you really need to be an architect?
I'm not sure about that, because I still question this. I know, I mean, actually, in my childhood, I had lots of different ideas as well. But since you grew up in an architectural family, in a family full of architecture, let's say, for example, I remember I was coming from the school when I was 7 years old, for example. There were nobody at home, and then both of them, I mean, my mother and my father was in the office, and I was going to the office directly. Office and the house was not linked to each other, but somehow not far away from each other. So I was going directly to the office, and then to tell the truth, rather than doing my homework, it was more interesting to see what's going on there, to talk to people there, somehow to spoil, to join to the teams of modeling and trying to understand what's going on. Of course, your veins are full of architecture from the childhood, but like, I mean, all the other, let's say, other boys, somehow in some point I decided to become a truck driver, because it was like I was seeing that it's the ideal profession in the world, because you can drive a truck. Firstly, you can, I mean, the truck was very, let's say, handsome and good looking, and then you were like on top of it, and then you were like discovering the world, going some different places. Then I understood that it was not the best thing for me. Then I decided to become a pilot. So afterwards, I talked with a pilot, with a friend of my father, and he said it's a very boring business, because it's a very boring thing, because I mean, everything is very electronized. Even at that time, it was like that, and you don't do too much. I mean, you don't do much things. Then I passed to another profession, which was car racing. I was like crazy for the cars. I'm still, I mean, somehow one of my, let's say, bad habits are the cars. Then it was the time that I should decide to which university I will go. and this came the time that I decided to not to do something else, because since the beginning I understood, I realized that I was trying to get rid of this idea of being architect directly, but it was nonsense. And then I said, okay, let's go to the architecture school.
Thank you so much, I see. And finally, I can say your second project is so awesome. Actually, Kocaeli needs a project. Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe you are aware that we are doing a huge project for Kocaeli for the moment. We did 2 presentations lately, and I hope that we will discover all the traces of Nicomedia, which is the Roman times, one of the most important ancient cities in Roman times. Maybe our colleagues are not aware of it, but we are doing an urban scale project in Kocaeli, which is a town near to Istanbul. I mean, only 100 kilometers between them. And the Kocaeli is the town of ancient Nicomedia, and I guess no one had an idea about that except some archaeologists. And we discovered this, and then very luckily, the municipality is have a very deep belief to the project for the moment, and I hope that we will do it. But it's a very long process. I'm not sure if I will be able to see the end, because I believe that the whole process will take something like 20 years. But the important is beginning. I mean, beginning is important. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So when doing this project, do you feel like, and also outside this project, do you feel like you are an architect 24/7?
Can you repeat your question?
If you feel that you are an architect 24 hours, for a whole week, or maybe you try to get away from this sometimes when analyzing a particular site, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dichotomy. One of the dichotomies that I have in my mind, in my soul, let's say. As an architect, I believe that there's no limit for somebody who wants to learn. I mean, the time should not be a limit, but at the end of the day, there's something which is called balance in the life. For example, my daughter is somehow, she's an architect, and she's criticizing me about working like crazy, and then she's always blaming me not to have a real social life rather than architectural work, which is, I mean, I never think about that, and then I never think about complaining from that, but it's a matter of balance, and it's very personal. I hope that I will die on my table. I mean, this is my hope, because I don't want to get older and older and being not able to work as an architect. But I mean, my aim is doing this until I die. So 24 hours and 7 days, sometimes not enough. They are not enough. For example, I think I went to my house yesterday evening, not evening, but this morning about 4:30 in the morning. I mean, because of a bad planning, or maybe because being so, let's say, meticulous. I don't know, or because I'm stupid. I mean, all of them can be real. So I don't know, but I'm not blaming about that. I'm not criticizing myself to do this, unless I got very, very tired that I never felt. I mean, I was.
So you are trying to take breaks, yeah? Okay. Are there any more questions from the audience? What time is it in Turkey right now?
9:20.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So not bad. I was afraid that it's 11 or 12 or something like this, but
It's 3 hour difference.
it's still a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would like to, sorry,
Um,
I would like to add the fact that I'm very much impressed by the Antakya Museum Hotel. And I think it's one of the few examples of the combination of archaeology and architecture. And it's actually a proof that those can work together, but you can't see it happening too many times because usually you're not allowed to construct on an archaeological site, and if something archaeological is discovered, usually the constructions are cancelled or that is happening. And I'm still very much impressed by the fact that they decided to go with it, and if the solution was so nicely integrated and so nicely helping, and they're actually completing each other in this case. And yeah, that's still like a big wow for me.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Like,
yeah, this process was a bit, let's say, dangerous and tricky as well.
exactly.
It took us something like more than 10 years, but I mean, in the beginning, I was not sure about that. And I said, okay, if we will be able to work very closely with the archaeological team, maybe we will be able to find some points, some specific points that we can step up. So in a way, it's a matter of span as well. If we would not be able to find this channel, to find this river in the middle, I think it would not be possible to do something like this, because even with this situation, with the solution, it's a crazy expensive building. And it's not very easy to find a crazy investor to make this. So in a way, it's 4 times more expensive than a conventional hotel for the moment. So he said, okay, in the beginning, I told him, frankly saying, I said, I didn't say 4 times, but I said, okay, it can be double or triple. And it's 4 times bigger than the original number. But not only the economical issues, but social issues, all the historians and conservatives' ideas about that. So it is still controversial, in my opinion. There are some criticizing. There are some architects who are criticizing this project as well. Even today, they are doing it. So after this competition of the hotel, I mean, nearly no one is saying that architecture-wise it's unsuccessful. But I mean, doing this building on top of the ruins is a big problem. So in that case, I have some ideas about that. I can tell you that if those ruins were not 6 or 7 meters below the ground level, which is the main ground level for the moment, the ground level of the city, I wouldn't say that we should do this. Because if those ruins, if those findings would have a 3-dimensional effect from afar, from another angle, it would be a sin to cover it with another structure. But in this case, the only place that you could see the findings is the above level, which is the ground level. You are up 7 or 8 meters up from the ruins, from the findings. So in a way, it's good to cover them, to conserve them somehow with a shelter, whatever it is.
Kind of protection in a
Yeah.
case, yeah.
Protection. And if you are not touching to any of them, if you are not spoiling any of them, if you are not creating let's say, another kind of danger to them, you can do it. After that decision, it's a matter of urbanistic, let's say, existence as well. So this is a very let's say, spoiled area of the city, and it's underdeveloped. I mean, it's underdeveloping, and I believe that the whole area will be affected from this hotel, from this building as well. I'm not talking about kind of a Bilbao effect, but I mean, at least this area will be affected in a very positive way. So it's near to the St. Pierre Church. St. Pierre Church is a big tourist attraction, and it's not possible that you miss the hotel when you go there. So in a way, yes, still I believe that this is not the kind of a typology or only response of doing something with the archaeological ruins, but it's a matter of, I mean, it's somehow one of the examples that you can do in this specific situation. I mean, I use the specifications, I use the situation as a word once again, because the situation is much broader than place, context, whatever it is. There are lots of different, let's say, feedbacks and lots of different effects, including economical factors, social factors, touristic factors, religious factors, whatever it is. So in a way, in this specific case, in this specific situation, I would rather do another one in the same situation. But I mean, it's not. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can do wherever you want. I mean.
All right. Personally, like knowing a lot of examples of cities built on top of already existed cities and maybe ruins or the cities, but that's another situation.
Of course. This is the first.
But still, it's a huge risk, and I assume that the structural part was one of the most important thing and one of the most sensitive things to help it. And yes, thank you for this example, especially because it's food for thought, and it's an interesting thing if you go deeper and deeper, and the story behind it, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's hope it develops over the time now. I hope future generations will also develop this idea of keeping the archaeological sites into their projects, maybe in the way that you did.
Exactly. That's a positive example, or an example, or how to do it.
A case study, I think.
Exactly, on how to leave the trace untouched and stuff.
Great.
Okay. Is there anything maybe you would like to add, Emre?
Not really. I mean, I think that we did enough. But
Okay.
if there is any other question, I can answer.
Not for me, but there is a really nice comment left by Muhammad. It's really saying thank you for the talk, and he was really impressed by considering the size of the thought he exposed here. So,
An inclusion of symbolism into the functional and constructional part of your work. But that's another story probably as well. Another different discussion completely.
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Mean, normally, I don't like to present lots of projects in this kind of lectures, because I mean, in order to give the main idea, you need time, and then it can be very boring at the end of the day. So in a way, I always keep maybe 2 or 3 projects. I do 2 or 3 projects just to give a general idea about the office, about the capacity. I talk about different geographies, different scales, and different buildings, but I always do that very fastly and then go to the main topic as some specific distinctive examples. So I believe that for this, I mean, especially for the young architects or the students, it's very important and critical to understand the main idea and the main path of thinking, the kind of, let's say, intellectual path of the project, maybe more important than the understanding the physical object.
And that was done. We need to say that it was done, and we did it, I think, in a very, very good way and pleasant way as well.
Thank you.
Really well structured and really nicely represented.
And thank you for including the UK example as well, because that gives us, I think, also another case study to look through.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Emre.
Thank you. My
All right.
pleasure.
It was a great pleasure to have you, and the video will be also available on YouTube, and we'll send this to you.
We'll share it with you as soon as available. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for being receptive to our invitation and to accepting it. And well,
Hope to see you soon.
hope to hear from you again once, and that will be amazing.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.